consent is something that we haven't as a society fully understood. We have this big debate going on right now about, marital rape.
We need people in positions of power. We need male actors. We need people who get the paycheck and command the big paycheck and command the power. It'll be nicer if the onus of change were upon them, because they are actually the movers and shakers.
Hello, Dia. Hello, Shreya. I'm Karen Pereira from Times of India. Thank you for speaking with us about your new short film, Grey.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so tell us a little about your characters and what made you sign on for this project.
So the story, I don't know if we can give much away, because it's a very delicate sort of a subject and a story to talk about. But what I will say is that it talks about the lines that sometimes people inadvertently cross without even realizing. It speaks of the necessity of having a boundary, of being comfortable in your own space, and what to do if a certain violation of that space happens. And the lovely Dia Mirza plays a therapist that my character goes to when a certain violation has happened, with boundaries and with spaces and with consent, more importantly, and how they sort of navigate the situation together.
Karen, honestly, I think consent is something that we haven't as a society fully understood. I mean, if you just take a look at the news and you see the kind of things that happen around us all the time, I think consent is something that we've just not understood. We have this big debate going on right now about, marital rape. So I think consent is something that we all need to learn more about and understand better. And for me, the most exciting thing about doing this story and being a part of it was the fact that here was an opportunity to educate people, to help them learn and understand about something that is so sensitive, so simple actually, that most people don't get. And it's been handled, like Shreya said, very delicately, very intelligently. And I think it's something that will speak to a lot of people. And I hope it's watched widely, because it will really help a lot of men and women navigate their relationships more responsibly.
So you both play these emotionally heavy characters and roles, like you, Dia of a therapist and Shreya obviously of a victim. So how did you prep for this? Like, were there interactions with people of this field and other victims?
It's not victim here. I don't think the word is right.
Survivors.
It's just people need help, in every way, all of us. When something happens, like, because we don't know how to navigate certain situations in our life, whether it's how to perform at your best capacity, whether when you're overloaded mentally, when you're overloaded emotionally. I think mental health is something also that hasn't been given that much spotlight in our country. As much as the topic and the conversation has started over the few years, it's still not where ideally it should be. So it's just that when Grey is in a sense that the subject that we're tackling, the story that we're telling is so lovely, because like Dia said, it's consent is something that we've not talked about. Sex education is not something that exists. There's so many things that aren't even discussed. So when they aren't discussed, how do you even realize if something has gone wrong? And if something has gone wrong, how do you talk about it? How do you have the tools that will equip you to deal with something like that? I mean, there's so many things that we don't even talk about. So to navigate that situation becomes something entirely different. So I wouldn't say victims, and I wouldn't say necessarily that there's some sort of prep involved, apart from the unfortunate fact that all of us have gone through something that we still don't know how to deal with, unfortunately. So
I think, Karen, that's actually a very pertinent point that Shreya's made, because it was one of the first reactions that I had when I read the story, was the fact that I think every single woman will relate to this story, because every single one of us has been through something like this at some level or the other. And that is what sets the story apart from maybe some others that may exist at some level. And as far as playing a therapist is concerned, there's the the only prep required is to come to the sessions with empathy and be receptive and listen, truly listen to what the person sitting in front of you is saying to you. And I've been in therapy, and I've benefited from therapy, and I think it's so important for us to normalize the concept of seeking therapy, because it's something that I think, like Shreya said, all of us at some point in our lives need and should be completely comfortable with doing. So the other advantage of being a part of Grey is that at some level, I think what we also do through the way the story is treated is normalize therapy. It's just such a it's of course it's such an integral part of the story, but also I think it will make more people feel comfortable about going to therapy. No, Shreya?
No, absolutely. I mean, the whole point of it is that to be able to, it's a heavy thing, yeah. And I hope we have done that with grace.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Okay. There's this line in the trailer, like he doesn't remember the night the way I do. So this thing stood out. How does this short film get a man to see the world through the eyes of a woman?
No, I don't think it's the point or the idea of our story is to get anyone to see the point through a certain gender, through the lens of a certain gender. Ideally, again, not ideally. Unfortunately, like what Dia said, women have been at the receiving end, every single one, regardless of age or stature or caste or anything. But the idea is to approach the situation with empathy and to know that maybe some people are also not taught about boundaries, about speaking and asking and looking for consent, about noticing the non-verbal signs, about noticing the feeble attempts to say a no, because all of us don't have the necessary tools to be able to refuse or to be able to stand up for a situation or for ourselves or to be able to proclaim no very succinctly. I don't think a lot of us have that skill. It's a very necessary skill, but a lot of us aren't even taught to recognize pleas for help when they come disguised as a form of a feeble attempt to say no, or like non-verbal signs, like I said, even with terms of
Even for the individual who may be experiencing what they are. So, and that's what makes Grey even more unique, is that it helps. I think it'll help people recognize that when you are in a situation yourself, why is it that you may not be able to refuse something the way you're expected to? Sometimes it can be hard to say no. How do you say no? And uh, that I think is an area that has just never been explored before and is so necessary, because I know that if I had watched this when I was younger, it would definitely give me a lot of perspective and help me deal with a similar situation better.
especially when it involves someone we know.
Yeah,
Knows become harder.
yeah.
This was the story.
Somebody we know, somebody we close to, somebody we probably even love and respect.
Yeah.
Speaking of consent, how do you think Bollywood played and Bollywood movies in general played a role in this in changing this, no means yes narrative? And how do you, as women in the industry, hope to correct that or change that in the future?
Thanks, Karen.
There was a film that came along that I think really helped the industry for the first time question consent. I think the more people get educated, and thankfully with films like Grey, I think more and more people should get educated. We will probably and hopefully change the way we, create our narratives. Thankfully, Shreya and I are not a part of those stories anymore.
No, but I want to flip that question even a lot more, because I think it's a little unfair to put the burden of change on women when they don't control so much.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
change should be, unfortunately, I think in a country like ours, it has to be a trickle down effect. It has to be a top down thing. Unfortunately, again, we need people in positions of power. We need male actors. We need people who get the paycheck and command the big paycheck and command the power or the ability to greenlight something or walk into a boardroom and make stuff happen. Those people are, I mean, if it'll be nicer if the onus of change were upon them, because they are actually the movers and shakers, and not on the people who are on the receiving end of it. I think it's a little unfair.
Yeah. And Karen, what's remarkable, because Shreya touched upon this, Sakshi is only the second female director I've worked with in a 21-year career. So we need a lot more representation of our gender also for things to change. And wherever that is happening and has happened, we are experiencing change.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Shreya, another line that stood out for me from the trailer was you telling your.
Yeah, Karen, kitne sare lines.
Well, I was left with only those things. So, the thing was you having a emotional talk with your friend, and you tell her she didn't. You don't believe me. So taking references from either Bollywood, like you have so many cases, whether it was the Me Too or like something more precise was like I'm taking like only female, like where women were put on this pedestal, and we as an audience had to involuntary, like stick sides, like whether it was Kangana, Hrithik, or even now the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing that's happening. What do you think is why do you think it's so hard for women to believe women?
I don't think that's true. I think it's a narrative that's created that, oh, women are the worst enemies, or women don't believe. I don't think it's a specific women not believing women thing. I think it's a general society not believing women thing. Because it's
like why? Like a man just has like a man's word.
It's a very like anthropological observation sort of a thing, but it's always okay. For example, women, there are very specific court case that I followed once. I think this was 4 years ago, when there was a certain someone being elected to the Supreme Court Justice of the United States government. And there was someone who was giving testimony against his behavior. And she was completely calm and composed, even though the incident, the alleged incident happened to her, and as she was relaying the information. They still, and when they came to the man's testimony, and he is currently elected to the Supreme Court, he again was screaming, crying, his face was showing a lot of emotions, yet the word hysterical and emotional was never used for the man. So it's just, I think there's a lot of perception in terms of society, in terms of media, unfortunately, that uses certain words when they portray and when they refer to women. Even headlines where there's a case of assault or rape, it's always a woman got assaulted, woman got raped. It's never in the active voice of a man raped a woman, or a man raped, a child, underage. It's not underage, it's a child, but just in terms of language, and there's small things that have been in the course of history, again, very basic anthropological, not that I'm qualified for any of it, but there's certain language, there's a certain conditioning that has always tipped the scales in favor of another gender, and usually the receiving brunt side of it were women. Why is a question for the ages. It's a very good question.
That's because, again, the men have monopolized the narrative. They've run most institutions. It just boils down to that, quite frankly.
Yeah, it does. It's as simple as that.
So with the female director now leading this, so there have been many shows that I've watched over the last months, whether it was, Anatomy of a Scandal, or even the movie, Oscar-nominated movie, The Last Duel. Many of them explored the similar subjects, but they all show the man going away scot-free, which may just be the raw reality. But how does, how do you two in this short film hope to bring the victims some ray of hope, or warn predators or people in a way? Like, how do you all get the message across?
Karen, when you watch the film, I think you'll understand that what sets the story apart is the fact that we're not focusing so much on, how do I say it without giving the story away? Trying really hard. It's a short film. Like
It's
how
like
much,
what Dia said, actually. It's just the basic idea of bringing empathy and to shine a light on a situation most of us have been in, but we haven't talked about it. Like, it hasn't been talked about. All of us have probably got.
and to give people a basic understanding of consent.
Yeah.
What is consent?
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, Dia, as a mother, what message do you hope to give all mothers raising both like sons and daughters?
Now when I do work, I do it when asking myself, how are my children going to respond to this story? Is this something that will, help them learn, understand, respond, be more empathetic in life? And I do believe that our kids are going to really get something from this, and it'll empower them. And I hope that uh, I can continue being a part of such narratives, because that's the only reason. I mean, for me personally, I feel justified about going away from them. Otherwise, it just hurts too much to be far away from my babies.
And Shreya, how was it
I
different
don't have
working
any
with?
babies, just saying.
Oh, no. How was it different working with Dia as compared to Sunny and Nawaz in Chup and Adbut? Like, what was your experience working with Dia?
Oh, actually, you should ask the question to all three of them. All three of them have been victims. This time I'm going to use this word, have been victims of my incessant singing of all of their film songs. Every single person has faced this torture, and I will continue to do this. It has been epic.
All right. So I think I've overshot my time, but thank you so much. And I look forward to finally watching this and not calling people victims. So thank you both and all the
Thank
very
you,
best.
Karen.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.